Hello, welcome to episode 3 of the Dargan Podcast. Welcome back, mi amigo. It is good to have you. We get the Let's Go Espresso. We get the comfies on, kick back, relax. We're getting into the swing of it now. And would you believe it if I told you that 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3? And of that 10%, 90% of those don't make it past episode 20. So in other words, I will see you in episode 22, my friend. But that's crazy to me. And there's a good lesson in that too. The mindset and the emotions that you feel when you are in pursuit of a goal, when you first set out on that journey, when you take that first step, they're very different emotions and a very different mindset that you're going to have when you're in the trenches, than when you're in the weeds. And it's important to not let your circumstance then dictate your emotions. We'll get to episode 15, and there might be one viewer, there might be one listener, and that's okay, because it's the rep that's important, and it's the one listener that's important, because if they take value, then it's a win. So the day you plant the seed is not the day that you're going to eat the fruit. And that's really important to remember on your fitness journey, starting a business, a podcast, no matter what it is. So in other words, episode 22, I got you. But today, we're going to get into something a little different. My 5 greatest lessons learned from doing life. And I'm going to give you a story. I'm going to give you the insight, then I'm going to give you the story. And then we're going to talk about it. These are things that have really shaped who I am. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this pod. So, we'll get straight into it. Number 1. You need to touch the fire to realize it burns. You need to make a mistake for yourself to learn from it. Nothing in this life is linear. And a couple of years ago, I told you in the backstory, I was loose. People may see me now, they get in the bin in the morning, I go and train, I don't go out sending it every weekend, and they're like, oh my God, that guy needs a good ride. That guy needs to loosen up a little. Number 1, I'm actually really happy with my life. I love it. Very chilled out. And I love the things that I do now. But the things that make me content are no longer the things that used to make me content. Pretty sure I articulated that properly. Maybe not. But the things that used to fulfill me don't fulfill me any longer. And I love those party days. But you need a good few sessions under your belt. When you're growing up, people need that. I see kids nowadays that are 16 and they're not going out partying because they're hitting the gym, because they're getting ripped. And I am all for people getting in shape. That's what I do. We coach people for a living to get in shape in between the ears and physically. But you miss out on a lot of education. That is the greatest education that you could have, as I said in the other pod, is going out, sending it and making those mistakes. You need to put your hand in the fire to realize it burns. And I'll take you back to a story. So when I was 18, my mum and dad, they went to Spain, and I think we'd said we had stuff to do, so we came home. I was 18. I worked in Topshop. I had nothing to do. I had no responsibilities. Let's be real here. So we sought an opportunity. We're opportunists here for a party, a house party. P68, we called it. It's like Project X. We just watched too many movies. I thought, this is going to be the party of this century. So my mum and dad were in Spain. We invited 80 people. We had a DJ. We got the smoke machine, lasers, you name it, we had it. I had my mates come up, we proofed the house, all the furniture, ornaments in one room, zip-locked it. We got plastic sheets, covered the floor, covered the ceilings. It was like a blank canvas. It was perfect. We made this place into a little dungeon, and it was mad. And we covered the cameras. So my dad has cameras around the house. There's like Big Brother here, right? He's obsessed with watching these cameras. Love him, but he's obsessed with watching the cameras. So this was going to be the bottleneck for the party. This was going to be the make or break. How are we getting around this hurdle? So it came to the day before, and we thought, okay, we'll just have to cover them. We could turn off the cameras at the mains, or we could cover them. But then if we turn them off, that might notify the security company. So we covered the cameras. We got the step ladders up. Well, I say step ladders. It was a massive ladder that up to the roof of our house. And then we put plastic bags around it. So we thought, great. We've gone dark. My little brother's in Spain. Take them out for dinner. Get them blitzed. They'll not think about the cameras. We'll have the night of our lives. Golden. So it happens. P68 the day of it. People start to arrive, and we hired bouncers as well. Okay, they were taking fivers on the door because we spent so much money. Like, we didn't have that much. We didn't have any money back then, so we spent. We got bouncers on the door taking £5. People were coming in. DJ was playing. It was mad. It was actually so loose, the party. It was class. But then mum and dad called, and they called again and again. And then they were getting a little suspicious that something was going on. And bear in mind, we had parties and parties before, so we were well warned, like, never again that was to ever happen. So they texted me saying, if you don't get back to me now, I'm calling the police. Bear in mind, I was chinned. I was well on my way. I was talking to higher entities. There was monkeys bashing cymbals, monkeys with 2 little top hats and waistcoats on. That was all that was going on in my head. They were sitting bashing cymbals. The lights were on, but nobody was home. So I wasn't answering any phone to mum and dad. So they said, I'm calling the police if you don't get back to me. So what they did, they called their friend to come up, to check on us, to make sure that there was nothing happening, to make sure that the house was okay. But the friend that they called was taking the money on the door. It was my best mate's dad. He said nothing. He was dressed up in a big black coat and a black hat. He brought his mate as well, and we'll call him John for the purpose of the podcast. No name. We'll not name him. We'll not name and shame through one of the boss here. But John, absolute legend. He said he was the one that got called, and he said, yeah, I'll come up, I'll make sure the house is sweet. He said it was A-okay. Yeah, Jerry, everything's perfect, no problem. And yeah, that was that. Party went on. Had the night of my life. Woke up at like 7 the next morning. There was like 30 people in my room. I was like, what is going on here? Anyway, we got caught in the end because the next day we did an after party. My brother fell in a sink and the sink came off the wall. Long story. But we had some mad days, and I would not be who I am without those mad days. But you need to touch the fire to realise it burns. You need to go on those ventures to realise why you shouldn't do it. Alex Hormozy talks about intelligence, and intelligence being rate of learning. That if he held up a red card, then he punched you. He held up a red card again, then he punched you again. He held up a red card again, and then you ducked. That is intelligence. That is rate of learning, because you've learned. I've been punched twice. When he puts up a red card, I'm going to duck the next time. And it reminds me of me going out drinking every single weekend. Like, I was doing something and then waking up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, feeling grim, feeling awful. I woke up with like no motivation, no drive to do anything. And there was so much more friction on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to do the things which I know was going to move me forward. And this kept happening. And you need to ask yourself, if I keep doing these things and I keep seeing the same result, I keep waking up feeling anxious, I keep waking up with no drive, and I'm always catching my tail with my training, with my food, at what point do we have to duck? At what point do we stop getting punched in the face? And for me, it took enough punches to realise, you know what, my hand is well and truly singed off, and I'm going to take another direction now. But sometimes you just need to experience these things. You need to try it. You need to experience enough pain to change. And if you're not in a position where you really have changed yet, then maybe you haven't been punched enough times in the face. But I say that metaphorically, but I do mean that. I do mean that too. I believe that people need enough pain to change. And there's a study by Jordan Peterson talks about it. And this is, I model my life on who I was and who I want to be. That's my why. Like, why I do what I do is I'm running away from who I used to be and I'm running toward who I am. And Jordan Peterson talks about this study about the cat and the cheese. Hold on, let's go espresso break. Oh, it slaps every time. So Jordan Peterson talks about the study with the cat and the cheese. And what they do in this study, they have rats, starving rats, and they tie a spring to the tail of the rat and they put it in a tube. And they waft the smell of cheese through the front of the tube, and the rat pulls very hard. Obviously, it's a starving rat. And then in the second iteration of the study, they waft the smell of cheese through the front, but they also waft the smell of a cat through the back. Then the rat pulls 3 times as hard. It's a starving rat, but what's the lesson here? Is that not only do you need to have something to run towards, but you also need to have something to run away from. And I'm running towards being that role model, being someone that can inspire other people and inspire the previous Daniels. And I'm running away from that life that I used to have, waking up on a Sunday and on a Monday, on a Tuesday, being really down, being really anxious, not feeling driven, not wanting to do anything, but just laze about. I'm running away from that life because I knew how that didn't serve me. So I want you to get clear on what's your cat and what's your cheese. What are you running towards and what are you running away from? Get clear on that. And then remind yourself when it comes to those difficult decisions, do I want to go to the gym today? Okay, what am I running away from? Great. What happens if I don't do this? Great. What happens if I do this? Okay, I'm moving forward to that, the cheese that we spoke about. So get clear on that, because that was an absolute game changer for me. Okay, so number 2, that was number 1. Number 2, if you don't rip the plaster off, no one will. If you don't rip the plaster off, no one will. So I met an old friend last week. And it's the first time I've seen him since 2020. And he hadn't really heard much about what I was doing. I hadn't spoke at all. And he couldn't believe where I used to be, because the last time we had contact, I was telling him that I was really struggling to go into a shop. I was struggling to go and speak in the same room as my parents, and sit in the same room as my parents without feeling uncomfortable. And he couldn't believe it. He says, "You're a shell of yourself. You're a wreck." And he says, what happened in the meantime? Like, how did you get to the position that you're at now? Like, you're not even the same person. He says, "I knew you had energy in you before. I knew that was there, but that Daniel had just dissipated completely." And for me, I was hiding away. I hadn't ripped the plaster off. Avoidance maintains anxiety. And I was avoiding socializing. I was avoiding the world, because I thought, if I shy away from the world, I'm not going to have to face any of my problems. I lost all confidence when it came to socializing, right? And when I was out in social situations, I just got really anxious. That was it. But it was debilitating. And I got a job in a coffee shop. It was actually my mum's coffee shop. And she almost pretty much forced me to go and work in it. This was just in between lockdowns. She pretty much forced me to go and work in it. I didn't want to do it because I was so anxious. I was going to have to speak to people. But by ripping that plaster off and throwing myself into such a busy social environment, I had no choice but to rip that plaster off. I had no choice but to dive into that and face those fears, which sounds crazy looking back on it, because I was in a position where I couldn't sit in a room alone with my parents, and I couldn't go into a shop, to then just last year delivering a talk to 250 fitness professionals on stage, to talking in Marbella in front of 60, 70 people. And the difference between those two was the fact that I no longer avoided those situations. And if there's an area of your life where you're no longer competent, or you're not competent at all to begin with, you need to stop avoiding that realm. You need to dive into it. A lot of coaches I speak to, a lot of other people, the content creators, like, I want to get into recording videos, I want to get into social media, but they're not doing the work. They're not picking up the camera. They're not filming. And it's accepting and it's going to suck in the onset, but expecting it to be easy makes it so much harder than if you just expected that it was going to suck. It was going to be uncomfortable. It was going to be difficult, and then pushing yourself to do that anyway. So don't let the trajectory of fear, don't let the trajectory of what could happen affect who you're going to become in 10 years' time. And there's this quote that I love. It's, "Ships are safest at harbour, but that's not what ships were built for." We're not here to stay comfortable. We're not here to make easy decisions. We're here to make bold moves. We're here to really challenge and stretch that fabric, what we're capable of, because that's what confidence is. It is a fabric, and you can stretch it. And if you stop stretching it, it's going to go back to where it was. And you need to constantly do things that are challenging you. But you need to rip the plaster off. You need to go balls to the wall. If that's going to the gym for the first time, you need to accept that that's going to suck. If that's public speaking for the first time, you need to accept the first one's going to suck. If that's filming a video, you need to accept the first one. If that's approaching a girl, you need to accept the first one is going to suck. But you need to rip the plaster off, because that is the most important rep that you will ever do. And the successful people, they're on rep 1,000, 10,000. But those reps never would have happened if they didn't take that first one. So rip the plaster off. Number 3. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. That is it. So when I was in flight school, back in 2018, I was an insecure guy. And I was an insecure guy. On the surface, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm down at pilot school. Like, I'm the man. I thought I was the bee's knees, you know. And I say that now, looking back with awareness, that, I wasn't. I really wasn't. I was just an insecure guy. And I was surrounded by a lot of intelligent individuals, really, really smart guys on the ball. And we were dealing with intricate subjects. They were complex, to say the least. And I hindered myself so much because I never asked the question. And this is so small, but this impacted everything in my life. And it's a huge lesson. So I never raised my hand when I didn't understand something. I never raised my hand because I didn't want to look stupid. And you know what happened? I gained less knowledge than I would have otherwise. Because of the judgment of 10 people, 12 people, the trajectory of who I was going to become suffered. And you need to ask yourself, when it comes to throwing yourself into these situations, what's the worst that can happen? I want you to raise your hand, no matter what that is. But raising your hand to start the business, raising your hand to, again, ask the girl out. You need to allow your curiosity to run wild. You need to explore your curiosity and forego egotistical imprisonment. And I wish back then that I would have had the balls to serve me, not anyone else, me. Because you know what? You're going to get to 80 years of age and you're going to look back and you'll not feel uncomfortable about raising your hand anymore. You'll just feel regret. And I don't want that. And I don't want that for you either. And if you ever take anything from this podcast, it's that you're going to have these emotions. But the goal is not to not feel them. The goal is to learn how to react from them. And that's simply just feedback. So raise your hand. That could be asking that girl out. That could be starting the business. That could be posting the video. Raise your hand. Explore that avenue, because you don't know what's going to become of it. Whatever facet of life that may be, you need to raise your hand. Don't fear looking stupid, because I done that and it held me back for a long, long time. Okay, so number 3, your perspective is your power or your prison. Happiness is an inside job. So when I first started posting social media, I had this dream of hitting 10k followers and 100k followers. And I'll be really real with you here. I thought as soon as I got to 10k followers or 100k followers that my life would be complete. I genuinely thought that. And I say that now with not embarrassment, because I don't care about that. But I cringe when I look back at how I used to think. And I thought, when that moment comes, that's it. That's it. Complete. Mission complete. But that was a vacuous existence when I hit that. And again, now I don't look at the followers. I look at the community built and the lives impacted off the back of it, because a number is not a fantastic metric to outsource your self-worth to the world. Same way the number in the scales, scoring a test, you don't outsource your sense of self-worth to the world because of that. And if I expected, hitting 100k followers to change my life. When I got there, it was always going to be disappointed. Do you remember your formal back in school? You thought it was going to be the best day of your life. You thought it was going to be the best night out ever, and it was always disappointing. Your leavers, it was always disappointing. That's the same as it. That's the same as this. So what's the lesson in this? It's realizing that you don't need cocktails on the beach. You don't need $1 million in the bank. You don't need 100k followers. But what you do need is to realize that your contentment, that's dictated by your expectations on what you need to be content. If you think, I will be happy when I have X, I'm telling you now, all of those things that I thought would make me happy, they don't. I thought if I got a 6-pack, they would be life complete. It wasn't. But that's not saying don't shoot for these things. That's not saying don't push yourself, because it's the pursuit and acquisition of these things which brings you contentment and fulfillment. But we need to realize that when we obtain them, it's not mission complete. That's not what's going to complete us and fulfill us. And when I was in Bali, I seen this firsthand. I've met millionaires before that haven't been happy, that haven't been content. And I've met Balinese bricklayers that smile every time you look at them, that are so content with the smallest of things. I met a guy on a beach in Bali when I was filming videos, and he was a surfing instructor. Didn't really have much. Sat there from 6 in the morning when the sun was coming up, smoking his fag. Anyone in the USA listening or further afield, a fag is a cigarette. And I asked him, why are you guys so happy? What makes you so happy? You smile all the time, people in Bali. And he said, I'm happy to be on the beach and be above ground. And I'm happy because I'm born, he says, I'm born without the clothes, without the car or the watch, and I die without the clothes, with the car or the watch. Those possessions that we rest our laurels on, waiting to have those things to be happy, they don't have access to them. And he said, you know what? I won't have those things, and what I do have is the life in front of me. What I do have is the waves in the morning, and I love meeting new people. There were things that he had readily at his disposal. He probably made very little, but he seemed happier than anybody on that beach. And isn't that crazy? And there's a lesson in that your circumstance isn't dictating your emotion. Your circumstance doesn't have to dictate your emotion. Your circumstance doesn't have to dictate whether you live a good life or not. There's monks that have very little that are happy people. There are surfers in Bali, bricklayers in Bali. There are people with absolutely nothing that are happy. Yet there are people with abundance, with yachts, with cars, with money in the bank that aren't. So what does that tell us? Lower your ideal for what it takes to be content, and raise your ambition. So you're going to achieve, but there's a low expectation. So when you do, you're going to be satisfied. And I want to read you this parable. And I sound like I'm preaching, don't I? I want to read you this parable. And it's called the parable of the Portuguese fisherman. And this is one story which I always come back to, and it really changed the way I think. Let's go espresso break first. Once upon a time, an American businessman goes on holiday. Whilst there, he falls in love with the local food, especially the fish. So he seeks out a fisherman and asks him how long it takes to catch such great tasting fish. Only a little while, replies the fisherman. The American asks him why he doesn't stay out longer and catch more fish. Because I have enough to feed my family, he says. But what do you do with the rest of your time? The American persists. I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, have a siesta with my wife, then I stroll into the village where I sip wine, sing and laugh with my friends. And the American gasps. Why don't you spend more time fishing? And with the proceeds, you buy a bigger boat. And with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats until eventually you would have a whole fleet of fishing boats. And instead of selling your catch to the middleman, you could sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery. You can control the product, the processing, and the distribution. Of course, you need to leave your small village and move to Lisbon, where you'd grow your incredible enterprise. The fisherman thinks for a second. How long will all this take? 15 to 20 years, the American says quickly. And then what? Says the fisherman. The American laughs. That's the best part. When the time is right, you would sell your company and become very rich. You could make millions. And then what? And then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine, sing, and laugh with your friends. Happiness is wanting what you already have. And I think that's powerful. That's powerful. Because I used to want to get out of Northern Ireland. I used to want to escape Northern Ireland. I used to want to go to Bali. I used to want to go to Australia. I wanted to live there. Because I wasn't happy in Northern Ireland. I wasn't happy. I thought it's small town mentality. It's dark. It's cold. It's not for me. I need to get out. I'll be happy when. It's not me, it's the problem. It's the location. And I was so wrong about it. I was choosing to look at what was missing in my life, what I didn't have, the hole that needed to be filled. And that hole, my friend, is a vacuous existence. That hole is like the magician's hat. There's no end to it. But the things that make me so content with life right now, going to Ballygally on a Monday morning, seeing the sunrise, having the flat white on the way home, when my little dog, Sonny, comes up to me in the mornings, wagging his tail, hiding his little bones. Going out for a Nando's with my mum and dad, my brothers. Those things are at my disposal. And they were at my disposal back then. But I chose to see what was missing and not what I had. And all it took was changing and reframing. So that's one thing that I want you to do. I want you to, when you're feeling negative, when you're having those thoughts, ask yourself, what's the silver lining here? Because it took me reframing things for a good year or two. Of course, I was doing things which weren't hindering me anymore, but also reframing it, because how you think dictates everything. So when you're saying something's negative, what's the silver lining here? What good can come of this? Because I hear people all the time. I heard it yesterday. I see my little brother talk about it. He was in the Spar, which is the local shop. And the cashier said, "Miserable day, isn't it?" And the guy replied, "Oh, just can't wait for Friday." He said this on a Tuesday. "Can't wait for Friday." And the cashier replied, "Oh, well here, January's over anyway. I hate Januaries." And that kills me a little inside. I understand that cynicism, it's part of UK culture, but who said it had to be? Where's the rule book that said you have to be a cynist? A cynist? I don't know if that's a word. Maybe it is. But why wish away your life? Why wish away your Monday to Friday? Because when we really deep it, the Monday is the exact same as a Saturday and a Sunday. They're just days. It's a social construct. And if we wish away our lives, we'll get to the end of our days and realize we haven't actually done much with it, bar wish it away. And I don't think that's a life that I want to live. And I'm sure if you're sitting here listening, that's not a life you want to live either. So I understand. You might not love your job. You might be having a crappy day. But what's going well in your life right now? Zoom out. What's going well? Because when you're inside the bottle and you don't ask yourself what's going well, you don't zoom out, You can't read the label on the outside of the bottle. So zoom out. Appreciate where you're at, things that are going well in your life right now. And understand that, okay, 5% of your life might be causing 99% of your worries. But when you gain perspective like that, you realize that things are actually going all right. Things are going well. You got it good. So reframe, what's the silver lining? And don't wish away your Monday to Friday. Because some people wish they had a dark, dreary, cold Monday morning to live. Some people just don't get that opportunity. Some people, they're never going to see a cold Monday morning again. But you will. And that's something that we should grab with both hands. That's something that we should be very grateful for. Next one. I'm making sure I had a next one. We do. Great. Happy days. Surprise. I think this is number 5. The quickest way to go faster is to avoid the speed bumps. The quickest way to go faster is to avoid the speed bumps. So some of these points interlink. And I remember I went on a heavy bender a couple of years ago. And the next day, I watched a movie called Sully. So if any of you don't know, Sully is the movie where, I think it's United Airlines, they land on the plane as a double engine failure. And the plane lands on the Hudson. The captain lands the plane on the Hudson River. Nobody dies. Everybody lives. And I sat there in my kitchen and I watched that and I actually cried. I wasn't an extremely emotional guy, but I sat there and I cried at this movie. And I thought, you know what, Daniel, maybe one too many benders for you. One too many sessions for you. And a bender, if you're further afield, you don't know that a bender is a heavy drinking session. And that was a moment where I thought, maybe something needs to change here, man. Maybe you need to turn a new page. But as I say, people focus on the accelerator. People focus on the journaling, the optimizing, the ice baths, the best program, the best gym routine. They're going to start all of these things to change their life. But what about the things that you're going to stop doing? What about the porn? What about the drugs? What about the alcohol? What about the scrolling on social media for hours on end? That you don't have time to get to the gym, but you're scrolling, your screen time says 2, 3, 4 hours. And I've been there too. I'm not saying this from a position where I haven't done it. I want to reiterate that, and that's why I tell these stories, because I want to show you that I have gone through and I've made these mistakes, and to learn from my mistakes. I've done them all, and I've been burnt. And the quickest way to go faster, to get to that place you want to be, to build that house, and I always talk about that, I spoke about it in previous pods, 1 brick. Every time you keep a promise, and you remove a brick every time you break a promise. The quickest way is to avoid the speed bumps, because that's going to allow you to have no friction. That's going to allow you to move forward. Because when we reduce the friction in our life, the porn, the scrolling, the social media, the drugs, the alcohol, you're going to be in a much better position mentally. And when you're in a much better position mentally, you're going to make rational decisions. You're going to be more forward thinking. You're going to be in a position where you have clarity in your situation, where you have perspective, where you have the mindset similar to one you had that I spoke about at the start of the podcast, when you set that goal initially, that fantastic mindset, that forward-thinking mindset where you want to achieve something, you're setting out to achieve a goal. But people set these goals and then they continue to do things which holds them back. And that's when the friction gets to them. That's when they're in the weeds. And they say, you know what, I've had enough of this. So I want you to ask yourself, what's the friction in my life that I'm going to remove this year? You figure that out. You get clear on that. That'll change your life quicker than anything, any other podcast, any other book, any other motivational video. You get clear on that. What's one thing I'm doing which I know is holding me back? One thing which I would change, one thing which I know I can change that I can stop doing today. And the most productive thing for your journey, your self-development, the most powerful thing that you could ever do is learn one word, 2 letters, no. It's saying no. And saying no is hard. Saying no is hard to your friends. Saying no is hard to tell your family that you're not going on the night out, that you're not going out for a takeaway, whatever that is, whatever journey that you're on, whatever's not conducive with that. Do we need to live like a monk? Do we need to go on a chicken and rice diet, never drink again, never scroll? No, of course not. That's what I'm saying. But if something's holding you back and you know it's causing you pain, you're putting your hand in the fire, the red card's going up and you're getting hooked and you're not ducking, then what do we expect? What do we expect, man? I want the best for you. I want you to be the best version that you can, but you need to help yourself. You need to want to change. And you need to realize that these things, if we do less of them, you're going to get to where you want to go. And that's what I want for you. And I haven't got it figured out either. A lot of people, we look at people on social media and they might think, like, I look at other people and I'm like, oh yeah, he's got it figured out. And what I've came to realize on this journey, people who have like multi-million-pound businesses, people that have like all the millions of followers in the world, like I've came to realize that not everybody has it figured out. And that's comforting. No matter who you are, no matter where you are in a societal hierarchy, that people make this idea that people are further ahead than others. I don't believe that at all. Everybody's on the same page. And nobody has it figured out. And that's okay. But as long as you're moving forward from where you were, that's the most important thing. And I had a client the other day ask me a question. This guy's a legend. He's actually wanted to become a coach himself. And he said, Daniel, I'm doing these hard things. He started doing ice baths. He started running 10, 20 kilometers. He's signing up for a marathon, for a triathlon, Ironman. And he's not getting the gratification from these things. He said, Daniel, I'm doing all these difficult things and I'm not getting the gratification from it. That's okay. That's okay. When you're in the weeds, when your back's against the wall, when you're in the trenches, you're not going to get the gratification if you haven't achieved the goal yet. In pursuit of that is the most difficult time, when you're midway through. Because in the onset, things are easy because you have that drive, you have the motivation. But when you get midway through, that's when you need to keep going the most. I spoke about the percentage of people that stop after episode 3. If they just continued past to episode 20, to episode 22, they would have the momentum to keep going. But realizing that that's the most difficult rap of all. And I told this guy, we'll name him Johnny. I told Johnny, the day you plant that seed is not the day you're going to eat the fruit, my man. The motivation that you had 2 months ago, that's not there right now, and that's okay. And it's knowing that this is what hard feels like. This is where people give up. This is where people throw the towel in, mate. And if you just get on the other side of this, if you just keep going and put one foot in front of the next, then you're going to get to where you want to go. And you might feel gratification, you might not. But won't it be better to have a crazy story, to know that you've achieved things, to know that you're resilient, than have no gratification and give in to all of your desires and have achieved nothing? So don't let those thoughts, those emotions, those feelings dictate your decisions. Don't never let your circumstance dictate your decision. because you're better than that. And we're going to grow together. We're going to win together. And I know that was more of a serious pod today, but I enjoy those ones because it's important to look into those insights, to realize the lessons that really shape us. And when you're on that journey, you have to decide ahead of time what is going to take a hit. So when I started posting videos, I went dark. I knew that something needed to suffer. I was working on the gym before at the time in a gym called Revolution Fitness, and I wanted to build up my online business on the side, but I realized like I don't have much time. I told myself I didn't have much time to work online, and then of course to build up these videos, to do these videos as well, to edit, to film, script, because I didn't have the money for an editor or an assistant or anything like that at the time. And I had to give something up. And I think this is a really important lesson for anyone. Choose ahead of time what is going to suck. I think it was Chris Williamson said this. Choose ahead of time what is going to suck. You can't push on every single front. You can't do it. Pushing all fronts with your relationship, with your social life, with your training, with your business. If you have a finite amount of energy to give and you can't operate at 100% in all of those realms, and anyone that tells you can, they're lying to you, man. They're lying to you. That's okay, because we're not going to have that issue. When I started posting videos, I knew my social life was going to take a hit. So I had to sacrifice my Saturday, my Sunday, because I knew that I'm going to have to put that into content. And that's what really allowed me to help it grow. And if I said, you know what, I need balance here, then I'm going to have to go on a night. Then I would miss posting this, and the Instagram wouldn't have turned into what it did. But I accepted ahead of time that my social life was going to suck. And that meant that when it came to my social life sucking, I accepted that that was part of the journey. I expected that to happen. And I didn't think, oh my gosh, my social life's taking a hit. I need to take my foot off the gas. I need more balance in my life. I expected that to happen. And your experience is dictated by how your reality meets the expectation. So your social life might take a hit if you're trying to get into incredible shape. But that's okay. It's a short period of time. And if you've lived a life of balance for so long, then a period of imbalance is maybe necessary to then get to that position where you can level it and have balance. But accept that ahead of time is so key. Because I used to sit in a smoothie shop every Sunday at the Titanic in Belfast. And I would script my videos, then I would go and film them, and I'd wake up on the Monday and we'd do it all over again. And those are fond memories. And I'm still in that position of imbalance. I'm still in that position where I'm building. So I want you to ask yourself today, if I'm trying to get into incredible shape, if I'm trying to push really hard in business, what is going to suck ahead of time? What am I going to accept something going to the wayside? And bear in mind, that doesn't need to mean things need to suffer badly, but that just means you need to attribute more time here. And that's okay. And we'll end on that. So thank you. Big love. I think we're now 23 days till the Wim Hof expedition. Really looking forward to it. We've built it up to 12 minutes now, so we're going to add a minute every single week. And I'm excited. I don't know what to expect from it. And then I go to Amsterdam the week before for my birthday, turning 25. Your boy's getting old, I know. People, when I ask people what age I think, they're like, oh, 28, 30. And I'm like, mate, cheers. Like, tough paper, I know, but just kick me where it hurts, man. Kick me where it hurts. But yeah, big love. That's episode 3 in the bag. I always just make sure I hope to God this is actually recorded. But yeah, if you enjoyed the pod, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the follow or the subscribe button. That would mean the world to me. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Big love. And as a wise man once said, let's go, baby. Let's do it.